Welcome to the 7 Chambers and Phoenix Props assembly video for the Hero Ultimate Edition. Let's go ahead and get started. Open this box up, it's a nice tight fit, slides right off. And inside we have the Sabre. So we'll start taking all the parts out. First up in the corner is the copper control box top and the PCB. The PCB you get will be fully covered in this blue, not exposed like this. What I'll do is this needs to be sanded off. It's a protective coating to keep this copper from corroding before it gets to you. It's an important piece to ensure, as during the processing this copper can corrode nearly immediately, and if it's not coated, by the time it leaves the factory it can start to corrode. But now that it's been coated, it's fine after you shave it off. So I'll show you how to shave that off. That's pretty simple. Put that down on the side. Next up we have the control box, which will fit on top of the Sabre. Screw down. We have the second pommel piece. This is the solid pommel used for, almost dropped it, used for a static display. You have the blade plug, hollow. You'll see why when we get going. You have the display plate with Hero Ultimate Edition Phoenix Props listed. And you have a base plate. Very simple. They just clip together. Click it in and done. If for any reason yours is too loose, it's very simple. You just add some glue to permanently attach them together. But for the most cases you don't. These nameplates have a plastic coating over the aluminum, as well as the bottom and the top, and then the back. So you can just peel those off really easily. Next is the little baggies. You're going to have some different baggies with different parts in there. Go ahead and start opening them up. You're going to have 2 tiny black set screws. These are M4. These are used in the top of the Sabre to hold your blade or your blade plug in, as well as one of them goes inside of your blade plug. You have your control box screw. This is to hold down the control box and the copper plate. You have the black slider switch. It's actually not a slider, it's meant for depression, but you'll use this to activate or to use your auxiliary switch. Have a hex key. This hex key is used to screw in your retention screws. Next parts you have are, you have 2 white LEDs. These are used if you want to put electronics in to make the small arrows, the red and green arrows, light up. You have the plate. This plate goes on the side of the control box and holds your red and green acrylic. Let's see if we can get that to focus. There we go. Your red and green acrylic for your control box. You will also have a SLS printed switch holder. This is used and will slide inside of the control box. It slides down in here. It's going to be a pretty tight fit. If it's too tight, you can sand down the sides just a little bit to get it to fit in. And then you'll only really need this if you're going to do the install of electronics. Otherwise you can just keep it in the box. That's unneeded. This switch holder has locations for the switches. So if you see here, there's a location for a switch, and here's a location for a switch on the front. And then this location for the switch is right here, fits in this area. And then on the sides in here are two little slides for your LEDs. These LEDs will slide in here in order to light up the arrows. One here and one here. Okay. If you got shipment from Phoenix Props, then your box should come with a little coin inside. Unfortunately, if you got the ones from Seven Chambers, he doesn't have any coins. So, last but not least is the saber itself. So it comes in several different parts. We will disassemble that right now. One thing you will notice that is not in these boxes is the triangle shaped ring that will slide into this hole here. These will be shipping separately for most of you. If you've gotten one that comes after the pre-orders, so retail sale, these will be coming in the boxes automatically. So first step is the pommel unscrews. This comes apart. Now that it's unscrewed, you can choose to use the solid pommel for static display or the sound vented pommel, your choice. Next disassembly part comes apart right here between the grenade area, grenade handle area, and the actual bottom. These unscrew like this. Next step, if you got shipment from Phoenix Props, threaded inside is the LED holder as well as the reinforced neck to help keep everything held together. Now if you got shipment from the Seven Chambers, then your LED holder and reinforced neck will be outside of the box. It won't be inside here like this. I've threaded all mine in. So if you want to disassemble it, first you have to just stick your finger in, apply some tension, and then start to pull this out. And then once you got it, it should spin out pretty easily. Okay, there it comes out. Next disassembly piece is the top of the saber. Disassembles like this. Copper piece next. Comes off easy just like that. And now you have the fully disassembled saber. So one thing to keep in mind is these are real copper pieces. You'll feel they're a lot heavier than the aluminum. These are also untreated. So they will begin to gain a patina, and if you add water, they will get corroded. So be very careful with how you play with these. We left them untreated because the major sentiment was that customers wanted them to remain untreated so that they would weather and gain the patina just like the original prop. If you want them to stay shiny and new, then you'll need to polish them first. So because they already start to get a patina from the moment they finish machining, if they're not sealed, you'll need to polish them up high and then either seal them with a wax or with a clear coat. That will keep them in their original condition forever. So it depends on whether you want them to be beautiful and new or you want them to age naturally. I prefer them to age naturally. Okay, so let's put this back together now. First step, copper neck. Now the head. Plug back in the LED holder. Now, in order to utilize the entirety of the cup for blade depth, because this is a very shallow blade depth, you can dual with this. However, not always recommended to do with it, just because, yeah, it's beautiful. Why would you want to smash it around? But if you need to, you have basically this full cup, so it's just under an inch of blade depth. The cup sticks up slightly, which will hold your LED and your lens, but because it sticks up, it doesn't fit this ring exactly. It actually allows your blade to go all the way deep. So the cup and the LED actually sit slightly inside of your blade. And this also means that with your electronics and LED in, you are able to put your blade plug in. So what we'll do now is we'll use these set screws, these grubs, and we will lock in our blade plug. Now if you want to have it in the exact same position as it was in the film, then you're going to want to put this blade plug in last, and then just adjust the position to where you want it to be. For these purposes, I'm not going to worry about that. So let's go ahead and screw this down. Okay, blade plug is now in nice and tight. And on the original prop, it was a solid piece looking like this, or maybe not a solid piece, but there was this piece sticking out, and there was a hole with a set screw in it, because what they used for filming were very thin carbon fiber tubes or blades that popped out. And they used this little hole in this set screw to hold that carbon fiber blade in. So we'll just go ahead and stick this set screw in so it's there for looks. If you'd like to make it screen accurate or film accurate, filming accurate, you're welcome to go buy a carbon fiber tube that fits in here. Okay, so that's those set screws in. We'll put this off to the side right here. And the next step will be the control box. So control box consists of the copper plate, the clamp card PCB, control box, and a bunch of other little things. Okay, let's start off with this. Step one is your clamp card PCB. Now, it's going to come, like I said before, with this blue over all the copper wires. In order to remove this blue, it's a very simple setup. You simply need to get something to sand on, and then get some sandpaper. I've got 240 grit sandpaper, just a blade for rotary, doesn't really matter. And what you're going to want to do is just lightly start to sand this, take it off the table here, start to sand this blue off. Just go back and forth, and you'll see now that I've nearly exposed this whole one here. And you just keep going until they're all exposed. Don't worry about the direction in which you're sanding. You can clean that up afterwards. The copper is thick enough that it's not going to be sanded off, but you don't want to go at this with a tool. You want to go at this by hand in order to take it nice and easy so you don't sand through the copper. A machine might just take the copper right off too. And you can see we're almost done here. Okay, now I got most of the blue off. You see, you'll end up with a bunch of blue powder. I would not recommend you inhale or snort or do anything of the sort with that. It's probably toxic. Can't really say. Now I just have a metal buffing pad, and you just use this to go over the PCB. This just helps bring out some additional, some of the deeper scratches maybe that the sandpaper gave, and give a nice cleaner surface where you go. Just kind of go at it for a bit, even it out, shine it up. If you want to make it even shinier, you can just get finer and finer grit sandpaper or a polishing pad, and that's what you can do with that. Okay. So now you have your PCB fully exposed. And, ooh, got some powder everywhere. Get that out of here. Okay, next step. You're going to see this little copper piece here. This main hole here, this is where this screw is going to go down into, through the control box and into the saber itself. Okay. There are 2 holes next to it, 1 and 2. These are M3s. What these are going to be to, you're going to push in the retention from the bottom, and what you can do is it's going to help to hold your PCB in. You're going to thread these little, you'll put your M3 grubs in from the bottom, and if you apply the pressure, it keeps this PCB from sliding. You don't need to keep it in hard, it doesn't need to be fixed in there permanently. It's merely to get some tension on it so it doesn't slide out on its own. Also, if you want to use a thinner PCB, this will also help you keep that in place. Okay? So, we have our switch holder. Now there are holes in the switch holder. Remember, this is only if you want electronics. You have your switch holder, and this will fit in. If it's a little bit tight, you just sand down the edges. There are some pillars in this piece. Here, here, and here. And on the side here and here and here. These are from the printing process, how they were connected, because they were printed off in a big set. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to get a blade, and be very careful, please. And then just kind of score these off. They cut very easily, and it's gone. So you'll clean that off. On the side, you're going to see these, maybe see some leftover pegs from the printing process as well. Simply just shave these off as well. Okay. Same goes for the bottom. You're going to have these matching pegs. You're going to want to very gently cut these off so it can sit in the control box nice and flat. There we go. Okay. 2 more to go. I'll just leave these in. Not important for this demo video. Just cut these out as well. Now you'll be able to slide this switch holder inside the control box. Set it down in there nice and flush. And there it sits. So when you're doing electronics, your LEDs will simply slide in, and you'll see this one will shine for this one, and then this one here, you have a second spot where this little LED will slide in and be glued down. But that's for electronics installs. If you're not doing electronics install, it's not needed. So, next step, we're going to want to do the little plate and the colored arrows. Now, one of the little baggies you get has these 2 little tiny screws in them. Very tiny, very hard to deal with. Now these are not threaded in. The original prop has this plate and the screws. The plate is glued down, and these little screws are also glued in because they are flush. They're flush, they're not actually, they're just for looks basically. You will see, if you can look here, that these screws are actually smaller. I don't know if you can see it or not. These screws the screw head is smaller than the hole. That is the way the original prop was because the screw heads simply sit flat to that box. So what you're going to need to make this happen is a little bit of super glue. So let's put this, well, let's not open it yet. Let's not get too crazy. Okay, first step is you're going to want to double check the orientation, because these holes in the bottom have a specific placement. So you want to make sure that the holes match the holes in the bottom. If you do them the wrong way, then the holes won't properly align. As you can see, the holes at the bottom do not properly align. Okay. So you want to figure that out before you start messing with any glue. Okay. So you're going to want to put these arrows, they fit in, they slide in and hold their position. Now make sure that you know which direction you want to put these in. The original prop had green towards the front and red on the back. So you want to put these in, and you want to add just a little dab of glue. So you'll see here on this control box, if I can get it focused without a big glare. Nope, light the other way. Okay. You'll see this edge right here on the control box. You're going to want to use a drop of glue along that edge to hold this piece down, because in this recess it won't be touching anything. So take your piece, we're going to put it together like this so the little LEDs don't fall out. Okay. Put them down, hold it tight while the glue settles. Now, if you want to match this polish level between these two before you glue, you're going to want to do, well, I probably should have done that first, so let's, yeah, before it's too late. So in this case, this piece, you can see machining marks, and they polished the opposite side. What we're going to want to do is you can come back with your sandpaper and your polisher to just simply knock off some of that machine finish. Just give it a little brushing, basically. If you've got some steel wool, this is also good for this purpose, to get a nice finish on it. I suggest you do this before you glue it down, because if you do it after, those little LED things are in the way and you can't get a nice even brush on it. So once that's done, you'll see that your surfaces are much closer matched than they were before. So let's go back to this. So let's work on this super glue once more, little dabs along the edge. Oh, there we go. You're going to want to put a little dab in the holes also, because the screws need to be glued in. A little dab in the hole will keep that together. Okay. Now we get back to our LEDs. Make sure they're in there correctly. The red one goes facing backwards towards the pommel, and the green one goes forward facing the blade. Once they're in, you're going to want to attach these two together again. Okay. And then drop each of these little screws inside. Like so. see that the, if I get a focus here, not really. Yep, panel's held in, screws are glued in, panel is done. Okay. Now that that's done, we're going to screw the control box onto the actual saber. Now you'll see that there are a large hole and a small hole, and here there's matching holes as well, 2 matching holes. The one in the center of the control box is the actual screw down, and the next one is simply the pass-through for your wiring. So you're going to set that down, and you're going to put this copper piece over the top of it. Now you want to make sure you get it aligned correctly. It won't screw in unless it's aligned correctly, but this hole is the hole for the switch. That's going to be facing forward, and you put it down on top. You'll know you got it right because the hole here in the center matches up with the hole. Let's get that out. Wait a minute. Let's see. I need to cut this pole out. It's one of those supports from before that I was telling you about. It was stopping me from holding it down. Okay. So your control box goes on, just like so. You set it down in and align your hole. You take this screw here, set it down. You can stick it out if you like, so you can find the hole correctly. You know, sometimes we have trouble finding the hole. That will keep you from doing that. And then you simply screw it down. Okay. Now, it aligns itself automatically because of the shape of the bottom of the control box and the shape of the saber. Now remember, you have 2 set screws here. You could even put them in from the top. You'll need to provide these set screws if you need them. They're M3s. You'll just screw them down just so they stick up just a little bit. They can provide some extra tension on the clamp card here to hold it together. So that's, I did forget one thing. So this piece, this black, this is your second switch. First switch being here. What this first switch is going to do is it's going to set inside that switch holder, and then it will stick out above here. The switches needed are simple 6x6 millimeter switches, 6x6x6, and the peg will stick out just a little bit, and then this will go on top of it, and there's a little bit of play in here for a reason. It's not an exact fit, so if you can hear or see, it's a little bit of up and down play. That's because the switch will stick it up and hold it up and put some tension on it, and then you'll simply press down to activate the saber. There's enough play in there that it can activate the saber that way. Now the second switch comes out here on the back end, out of this little hole. Now it's going to stick out a few millimeters, and it needs to match up with this hole, and you're going to glue that switch together with this little block. You put the switch head there, add a little bit of super glue to it, and boom, put it there. And now when your switch is in there, you will simply press this black thing to activate either your auxiliary or your primary, depending on how you install it. If you will not install a switch because it's purely display, very simple. You just add a couple dabs, top of super glue, put it into place above the hole, and done. Okay? So now that we've got this assembled, the next step is to screw it together. And clamp card back on. And now you have your Luke, Return of the Jedi, lightsaber assembled for display at this point. And for electronics, yeah, there is a Goth 3D chassis that's using pogo connectors and a touch board so that your wiring doesn't get twisted up in the unscrewing, so you can do a reveal chassis. Yeah, so that's the Sabre. I hope you like it. They should be arriving at your home very shortly, so expect them. Thank you for your time and your patience, and goodbye.